All right, welcome back to Texas A&M Aggies Live, part of the Voice of College Football Network. I'm your host, as usual, Cameron Honesty, joined, as always, by Cameron Torres. So we are coming off of a bye week for Texas A&M. Came at the perfect time, in my opinion. I think that they needed added rest after taking on 2 consecutive road games against Arkansas and LSU. Obviously, beating the snot out of LSU on the road and basically ending Brian Kelly's coaching career helped a lot in that regard. I think they were running on adrenaline probably the next 2 days. But Mike Elko spoke on Monday, talked about how, he feels they had a really, really solid week. They worked out some of the remaining kinks in this offense and defense, but probably slow starts on defense, I would say, was the focus. And again, just keeping that same mentality to go on the road, get the job done. Facing Missouri this week on the road, we talked about it a little bit last week. That they will be playing freshman quarterback Matt Zollers, who, looking back at the 2025 recruiting class, he was the number 9 ranked quarterback, according to 24/7 Sports. Very skilled kid. Elko did state yesterday that he believes that Eli Drinkwitz isn't going to change much for Missouri's offense. They're really going to they had another week to, get Zollers up to speed. And again, this is going to be an Ahmad Hardy game. Their star running back, I think he leads the SEC with 937 on the ground, 11 touchdowns. Best back, I would think, with Le'Veon Moss out in the SEC right now. Very tough to stop. You really have to, I hate to say this, execute, as former head coach Jimbo Fisher used to say ad nauseum. But that is true. You need to be on your P's and Q's, run defense-wise, to make them one-dimensional, force Matt Zollers to drop back almost every play. And coming in to make a long story short, Cassius Howell, who's a recent Lombardi Award semifinalist that was announced today, has to have another big game in this defensive line that I think is their 3rd or 4th tied right now with 32 sacks, only after the bye, and that's mainly because Texas had 6 sacks against Vanderbilt. Still one of the best pass rushers in the country. Need to make a big impact.
Yeah, definitely need to make an impact. I mean, our thoughts are still with Bo Pribula for Missouri as well, who looked like a really, really good addition for the Tigers, especially helping them get, I believe, 5 straight wins to start the season before going up against a tough Alabama team and losing by 3. But all the meanwhile, it's exactly like you said. Matt Zollers is really just unexperienced at this point, while he is very, very talented. We saw another QB this past week while their starting quarterback go down in Nebraska with Dylan Raiola. Mm-hmm. They had true freshman quarterback TJ Lateef come in and just kind of took him out of the game. So I'm wondering here if some kind of simile is going to be attempted by Missouri as well. While Zollers did lead a drive immediately for them to come in and score a touchdown. I believe their lone touchdown of the game against Vanderbilt. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that was the lone touchdown of the game for Missouri. 1 or 2 of them.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he I think he was like 13 for 20 something. He had one. He had the only touchdown for the game.
Yeah, but this is really going to be a game where they are going to lean on their star power and their rushing attack and offense, which has been really stellar across the board. I mean, they're putting up around 31 points per game, which is good for top 35 in the country. Their defense has also been really, really good. I believe they're a top 20 defense in opponents' points per game, mm-hmm. allowing just under 20 points per game as well. But it's really this rushing attack. They rush it about 57% of the time, and that equates to, I believe, like 46 times a game that they rush the ball. It is a lot, but they're very consistent with it. They like to use those stretch runs to the right or left side for Ahmad Hardy. They average around 5 yards a rush, which pretty good number. I believe it's top 15 or 20 in the nation. So definitely the spot to look out for is Ahmad Hardy, and even Matt Zollers might take off a couple of times if this A&M pass rush gets up to him.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because this, again, when you have a freshman quarterback in there, you trust that he can make a handful of plays. That's all you're really asking, unless we're talking about, a guy who you recruited to immediately come into the program and start, which is pretty rare nowadays. I mean, experience is everything, especially in the transfer portal age. As these defenses get better and better, you see obviously with Texas A&M this year is, when you look at the start of the season to now, this is one of the best defensive lines in the country, where we had questions coming in because you had all these new pieces, obviously Deion Hayes and Tyler Odienem coming in who were experienced, but had, Hayes had injury issues. Odienem came from a 3-4 scheme. So he was, wasn't completely a perfect fit, but so far the experience has triumphed any potential issues. And that's why
absolutely,
they have been able to, they're littered with NFL talent. And the point is that, when you go into the bye week and you look at all the success you've had, I think that Mike Elko has a perfect mentality. He talked about that they're a desperate team. And I think everybody kind of read into that. Even I read into it when he said it. Well, that's kind of interesting to say when you're 8-0, but when you really think about it, they are the hunted team by everybody. I mean, they're going to be disrespected. You see in every single conversation with the national media, they're going, well, Texas A&M is good, but there's always a but attached to it because they're not a blue blood program. They're not considered one because they have not lived up to a blue blood standard, and they have not won a national championship since 1939. So you can't call them a blue blood. There was a conversation with a Missouri person today, and Robert Barons was really kind of funny about that. And people love to dog A&M for this and that, but dogging the fan base for being excited this year is just dumb, and it doesn't make any sense because we've been talking about this and building this up for a while. And so when you reach this point where you've already won every road game you face against stiff competition, that includes Arkansas. No matter how bad their record is, you're facing a fantastic quarterback who is going to have a bright NFL future. And obviously beating LSU the way you did, first time since 1994, which began with beating Notre Dame on the road, who, if they went out, probably is going to be in the college football playoff. You've already accomplished some of the hardest tasks you have every season. You're knocking down these barriers that have kept A&M from contention. And this is just year 2 with Mike Elko, but the blue-collar mentality, the ability to change on the fly when needed, which was not the case with Jimbo Fisher. Look, it's just impressive. And, this weekend is just another test for them because you are facing an offense that may be down a key starter, but Eli Drinkwitz is one of the best offensive minds. We were talking pre-show that there's rumors about him being connected to the Penn State job. Well, there's a reason for that. It's not that Penn State, can't get Mike Elko or can't get the other guys they want, so they're just going with Drinkwitz. He's a top candidate because he's turned Missouri football around, which, again, they were kind of, I wouldn't call them the doormat, but they're kind of the team in the SEC nobody really cares about that much because they don't really fit that SEC narrative. It's just Missouri, right? It's more of an, it's known for its journalism school, for example. It's scholastic, I would say. They've been very good in consistent in some sports. They've been a surprise in basketball. Their baseball team is horrific, but he's brought them to relevance to the point where they've been very, very consistent. And if he stays, they're going to keep being consistent. I think even if he did leave, they're going to end up being able to hire a very good young or veteran coach that will likely continue this, success they've had. They've done an excellent job in recruiting. That's why they have such a good team so far. But so I, instead of drawing, keep going here, it's just another big challenge because I just talked about at the beginning of the show that I think the thing they've worked on this week is preventing slow starts on run defense because they have allowed teams to kind of gash them in the first half. Then they adjust in the second half, slow that down, forcing teams to pass. But if they allow Ahmad Hardy to run all over them in the first half and Missouri gets up early, this could be a back-and-forth contest that won't play in the Aggies' favor if they don't control and dominate early.
Yeah, they definitely have to. I do want to point out that this defense for Missouri has quietly been one of the top 10 defenses, I believe, in the country. I've watched their games, even against Kansas and South Carolina, where those teams scored 20+ points on them. But this defense for Missouri, I really do think matches a lot of what A&M has done or this same season. There are a lot of things that I look at, especially if you pull up like a stat sheet or anything like that. It's eerily similar how well these teams are progressing, especially with the coaches that they have. I mean, when Blake Baker left for LSU, right? This defensive coordinator who is making changes, and we've seen already with LSU, apart from the A&M game, that LSU defense was really, really elite. But now you are looking at Corey Batoon, who came in from South Alabama, I believe. He finished as a Broyles Award finalist like 3 times as a defensive coordinator already. So when he came over and replaced Blake Baker, there was this whole, oh no, where are we going to get this defensive mindset from again? And really, people were just looking at the offense being elite and trying to take control for this Missouri team. But now you're able to lean on this defense a lot more because this rushing style for Missouri has been so well run and dedicated to it, to these longer drawn out drives. So without Bo Pribula back there and the bye week, it'll be very interesting to see how Missouri kind of game plans for Texas A&M's defense, because they have been overall good at stopping the run so far this season, just borderline on excellent. So kind of where are your thoughts? Because the one thing that pops out to me that both Missouri and A&M do very, very well is get to the QB. Both teams have incredible edge rushers. Damon Wilson immediately comes to mind for Missouri, who has been awesome this year. And Missouri, I believe, sacks the QB around 10% of the time. They rush the QB when they drop back. So what are your thoughts there?
Well, it's going to be, again, it's going to be a battle in the trenches. A&M's offensive line, which has been, beyond elite, consistent, only allowed, 7 sacks, have not allowed a sack in, I believe, the last 5 games, I think. Yeah, and especially in SEC play, which that's even more impressive. You're playing against some of the best defenders, some of the top recruits that have come out, especially on the defensive line. So I was looking at the numbers today, and we can talk about how good Missouri's defense has been. I think they're keeping opponents below 20 points on average. I think it's like 18.4 points allowed. I think it's like 81 rushing yards allowed. So you saw when they lost to Vanderbilt, a lot of it was heroic play by Vanderbilt QB Diego Pavia, which he's done that a couple times. Very good defenses this year. Again, that was a 17-10 game. We have thought that A&M was going to be in some dogfights this year. They've been really in one this entire year against Auburn. That mainly had to do with penalties. That should have been, if I kind of look at the numbers, like a 34-3 type of game. They really should have blown them out, but they kept giving them opportunities. A&M is so good this year that the only way really they're going to lose games is if they completely give the game away. I mean, that's how I kind of look at it. But going back to the offensive line, Missouri has given up over 18 sacks this year. I think they're ranked, I think it's either 15 or 18. I don't want to be completely wrong on that, but I believe they're ranked 96th in the country. Again, you're facing a rotation now that isn't just Cassius Howard. It's Dan Hayes, it's Tyler O'Neill. The defensive tackle rotation led by Albert Regis and DJ Hicks has been very, very good this season. Both those guys are getting pressure in the backfield. They're not just stopping the run. That was something that Elko talked about. If these guys can get you pass rush production, this is going to be one of the better defensive lines in the country. But he even praised Missouri's defensive line last night. You mentioned Wilson. There's a ton of young talent there, a lot of speed, a lot of athleticism. That scheme, they are not afraid to blitz. They will bring the house, and they know that facing a quarterback like Marcel Reed, who shredded LSU, who again, let's just make this clear. LSU's not a great team this year, but they have a very good defense. Okay. Yes. A&M's offense is just better. A&M's offense is more multiple. The fact that they can shred you through the air, and if they get it going on the ground, they're just too balanced to stop. Also, Marcel Reed rushed for 108 yards and a huge touchdown to start the game. Look, yes, he's a Heisman candidate for a reason, so it's very tough to game plan for him because if you blitz, and he can find a hole and get through it, it's going to be a nightmare for that defense, because if they bring too many guys and he finds one hole and exploits it, or finds it's hot immediately and gets the ball out quickly, which they're going to practice that, and they have been practicing that this week, because they feel that they do have to probably bring a lot of guys to get in his face. Reed has not been, I don't know, we have to look at the numbers. He hasn't been great under pressure, but he hasn't had a lot of pressure, so he hasn't had to deal with that much. But again, has A&M's O-line really failed him this year? Not really.
Really. I
really can't say that, because even 7 sacks scattered throughout 8 games, all wins, it's, I think there are a couple against Utah State because they had backups in. I think, you had guys like Robert Borden in when Trey Zoom went out. So there was a reason that happened. But you're completely healthy. These guys are 100%, experience beyond in terms of SEC play. So if they can't pressure Marcel Reed, I'm sorry, I don't see a way unless, look, you can shut, and I was writing about this today, you can shut down the run, and that's fine. But again, opponents have shut down the run, but when you have Casey Concepcion and Mario Craver, Ashton Bethel-Roman now coming on, Terry Bussey, also another weapon. I mean, Reed is so comfortable in the pocket when he has time. I just don't see a way where Missouri is going to control this game at that point.
Right. And that control, I get what you're saying. I think that, having watched this Missouri defense as well, they do a decent job of, when they do send those blitzers like we discussed earlier, they clog up those rushing lanes, especially those gap schemes up the middle. So I'm kind of looking at that matchup and seeing where can this offensive line just take it over the top, because they have been incredible this season so far. So are you able to go into a road environment off of a bye and pick up these extra blitzers where you're just going to have trouble with certain guys? Can you make that first read, whether it's a read option and Marcel Reed is able to take it out of the pocket immediately, or are you able to fake out that edge rusher that goes unblocked, right? So
yeah. A lot of RPO stuff. We're going to see a lot of RPO.
We're going to see a lot of it.
Marcel Reed is really good at those. He holds on the ball
the late
amount of time to fake him out. So I mean, I can see that the game script for Colin Klein is going to be similar to what we saw against Arkansas. I would say I think it's going to be really focused on middle of the field, get the ball out quickly, and then if there are deep shots available, take them, because they do know that Missouri's secondary is respectable, but it's exploitable. And when you have that type of speed, again, who has shut down A&M's passing game so far this year? I mean,
just Auburn, maybe.
Auburn, and by the way, the funny thing about Auburn, firing Hugh Freeze, and we can talk about that at the end of the show, but that defense has been one of the best in the country this year. And they had a stat which was kind of incredible. This team has not won an SEC game. That defense has given Auburn a chance to win every game. And if they had any offense, we'd be talking about Auburn as a college football playoff team right now, and Hugh Freeze would have a job. So that's the only defense that has given them issues all year.
Hey, interim coach DJ Durkin.
Well, yeah, but that's my point. Still, they still had, I think it was over 404 yards against them. They, Le'Veon Moss had a long touchdown. It was only because of penalties, like we said. So I get, it's also we got to remember, it's a 2:30 kickoff. So if this was a night game, I would give Missouri a much better chance because of how the environment's going to be. But in a 2:30 game where I get a lot of the fans, we talked about this with Auburn, they don't like the 2:30 kickoffs. They're kind of in that middle of the day, they end close to night type of matchups, which always are weird. And, we saw last week with Georgia and Florida, Georgia had to escape Florida, who was, again, just fired their coach. They're the team kind of playing for pride now. They almost lost that game. There's a questionable call where the Florida wide receiver looked like he caught the ball, but they said no catch. And a lot of weird stuff happens in those games. But, I always go back to the Arkansas game because we talk about how, A&M was up 21-20. Arkansas just scored. They go into halftime. The fans are starting to come back in the stadium. They have all this momentum. And then A&M just comes out there. Marshall Reed gets like a 30, 40-yard run, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Throws a dart to Casey Concepcion for the touchdown, take back the lead. They don't lose the lead the rest of the game. It gets a little dicey in between. But the difference between that game and Missouri is that you're playing Taylon Green, okay, who's an experienced veteran quarterback with Bobby Petrino as an OC and a ton of weapons in the passing game, and two very good running backs. Well, now you kind of look at, you get a freshman quarterback. He has some good receivers, right? Very good guy. Very good. He has a very good rotation there that can produce explosive plays if Zollers is on target. But again, this is a freshman quarterback playing against one of the best defensive lines in the country. Again, against a team that's undefeated, that has everything on the line in terms of SEC championship hopes, making the college football, getting a high seed in the college football playoff. Missouri is also desperate because they pretty much have to win out, I would say. But I don't know. I'm very iffy about this game because I was worried about it when Bo Prabilla was healthy, because I knew that he can hurt you with his legs. He can make chunk plays when nothing's there in the passing game. It's just, I've seen enough of these games where experienced defense play against freshman quarterbacks. And unless you just turn the ball over and make dumb mistakes, it's very, very tough for those opposing offenses to get really anything consistently going. Unless, again, like I said, Ahmad Hardy just has a monster game and it can't stop.
Right, exactly. And the only two defenses that have really shut down Ahmad Hardy this season are those teams in the state of Alabama. So Alabama and Auburn have held Ahmad Hardy to, I believe, 58 and 61 rushing yards, respectively. So under 65 rushing yards in both of those games. So that's going to be something that A&M has to look at and on film and say, how did these two teams shut down this rushing offense? Because even though Bo Prabula was in those games, they took Ahmad Hardy out of the equation. So how are they going to take a look? Because they've had this bye week. I said it last week. We called this a blessed bye week because no one was kind of looking at them thanks to the Brian Kelly firing, the national headlines. Everyone is just taking their eyes off of this team that is quietly 8-0 and going into a very tough road environment. So if we are able to watch the Aggies effectively take this bye week, go into Columbia, and just perfectly execute their game plan, like we said earlier, in requisite of Jimbo Fisher's days, if they're able to execute their game plan pretty much exactly how they've been doing, especially the ones against Arkansas, LSU, are they able to have these explosive plays generated? Is really what I'm looking at too, because they have two experienced DBs on those cornerback slots. I believe both of them are seniors in Toriano Pride and Dre Norwood, if I'm not mistaken, is the other starting cornerback.
Dre Norwood, yeah, he's their outside safety rotations. Marvin Burks, Jalen Catalon, who we'll get to Jalen Catalon in a second. Excuse me, but yeah, they're experienced on the outside. Like I said, I was looking at today, and I get it. There's going to be matchups there where you say, well, they've been pretty good. I think they can match up with KC and Mario Crevert. Again, though, look at the corners they've matched up with at Florida, at Auburn, Notre Dame. They can't cover them. They just can't. Nobody can cover these guys. They are too quick. They're too efficient as route runners. They're too versatile in how you can use them. Colin Klein is having a field day right now with moving these guys around. You can only take one out of the equation, but the other is going to be wide open on almost every play.
Exactly. I mean, Missouri, they run the same defense that we saw that Notre Dame runs in a 4-2-5 scheme.
Yeah.
So they're going to have that nickel back on the field, which I believe Missouri's is Dalen Gray or Dalen Carnell.
Dalen Carnell, yeah.
Dalen Carnell's their nickelback. He's a very experienced guy as well. So are they going to be able to take these wide receivers for A&M out of the question? They have proved time and time again that if one of them isn't open, the other is, right? These dynamic duos. And we've even seen, Terry Bussey and Ashton Bethel-Roman, especially Terry Bussey on these underneath routes. He's been quietly just been consistent this entire season on being open and being able to turn up field. So Those are the type of plays I'm projecting in this game to have. So I think once we see that, once we see how they're able to open up these plays, because I really do think if you get up against Missouri on their home field pretty quickly, you're just going to be able to consistently, have that same type of game that you had against LSU, where in that second half they got up and LSU essentially had to roll over and kind of take it.
Yeah, and I think that when you compare it to Vanderbilt, like Vanderbilt is a good team. They're not an elite team. We saw that against Texas. Texas, I don't know what the heck they were doing. They allowed, Diego Pavia just kind of run all over them at the end, and almost if it wasn't for, the Vanderbilt player kind of hitting the ball out of bounds, I mean, who knows what would have happened, right? It could have gone into overtime, but it's, it was a weird game. But Texas, for the most part, was just beating the crap out of this team and did show that Vanderbilt is good against mid SEC competition. They're one of those type of teams where they I think, kind of like Missouri has been, right? Missouri couldn't win the big one, and but they'd always, stay steady, win 9 games, beat the middle of the pack teams, and get to a decent bowl game at the end of the year, or vie kind of for a college football playoff berth. And I'm not saying that's who Missouri is now. It's just very hard when you have a freshman quarterback. But like, until I see one of these games where the defense just completely shuts down what A&M thrives in, I'm not going to believe it. I just haven't seen it yet. I mean, I'd have to go back to every game and again, we'll say it again. Outside of Auburn, that's the only one. But still, they had 400 yards total offense. They were moving the ball down the field. It's just because flags every other play, and it's like
there were flags everywhere, man.
Yeah, and tough environment. I get it. Playing in Como sucks. I mean, you ask anybody, it's a very respectable place. I mean, it's loud. They get really into it. They're 6-2, so they still have everything on the line. They probably have drank the Kool-Aid this week, like every fan base does, including A&M has in the past, of the coach saying, well, like, no, don't worry. We trust this quarterback. He's got it. Like, he's going to be ready, and maybe he will be. I just believe, and I'm not laughing at him, but I'm just saying A&M's defense specifically is built for this now. I get it. They're on a bye week. I understand. There are going to be people who are going to pick Missouri this week because they're going to say, well, A&M was on a bye after a big win, and we've seen in the past that when you win a big game and then you go home, you're all happy and and look at you're undefeated, and then you go on the road kind of like Miami did when they lost to Louisville the way they did, and now they just lost to SMU on the road, probably taking SMU lightly, right? So you can't take any of these teams lightly, but I think listening to Mike Elko yesterday, they aren't. They understand the task. It's not their fault they had a bye week last week. Like, what are they supposed to do? Say, no, we don't want the rest. We want to go immediately to Como and take on this team. It is what it is. And I get it's just for writers and podcasters, I guess, to talk about it. But I've seen this story before, and I haven't seen them have slow starts after a bye, even after Notre Dame. I've seen 2 games with UTSA, well, maybe 3 with UTSA, Utah State, and Auburn, where they just were kind of off. They weren't consistent. But outside of that, and in SEC play, the slow start against Mississippi State, you're leading, 9-7, I believe, at the half. Yes. You come out and blow them out 7-3, and you blow them out 31-9. Like, that's who A&M is right now. Mm-hmm. So if they have a slow start, and let's say, A&M gets 1 touchdown, they get a field goal, Missouri gets a late touchdown to go in the halftime, they're up 10-7. I believe in Mike Elko more to make those necessary adjustments and get his team on the right track if they do have a slow start, because it's not the same season anymore. I mean, you look back, even going to last year when they had to beat Auburn, right? They had to beat Auburn, but they were facing an Auburn team that hadn't won a SEC game yet, I believe. They had trouble winning at home. It was at night. Weird. Nick Saban had said it. It's very weird playing in that environment at night. And look, they went into 4 overtimes, lost that game. The curse continues. They lose to Texas at the end of the year. But it's a completely different team. It's a completely different mindset. And I get that it's going to be one of those games where you go in and you feel a little uneasy about it because you see the crowd and you see how into it they are. But again, I just think they're built for this moment. And I think they understand that if we get this win, not only are we 9-0, but we have 2 consecutive home games against a 3-win South Carolina team, Stanford, and then we get – it was like 6 days to prepare for Texas to finish the season out. Where if you're 11-0 going into Austin, I mean, how much better can you ask? I mean, how much more can you ask for?
That's a storyline moment that you have to be ready for.
Yeah, exactly. Because this is where it starts. You have to win this game to have that moment, right? Because if you lose this game, yeah, you're 8-1, and yeah, you know, you can win, you can lose a game, you can afford it, but it's just not the same, right? Because if you get through this 3-game road trip and win every single, like defeat every single opponent and break down every barrier remaining, you are going to continue regarded as one of the best teams in college football, maybe the best team in college football. And you only have really one challenge left, because I honestly, watching South Carolina, Stanford should be an easy win. I think they're going to run through those opponents, and that just sets up a monumental game that could mean everything for your season.
It could, yeah. I think that you have this game right here, which in recent years would have been screaming out to the average A&M fan as a trap game if you were having a good season. I think from now, all the things I've seen, the people I've talked to, they don't see that as a trap game anymore. Their perspective has changed to the point where they believe if you feel like you are the better team, you can go on the road and you should be able to win. So that has changed for these Aggies. I think before we wrap up and get to our predictions for this, should definitely do think we should give some players to watch or some matchups to watch in this game before we get to our predictions. So I think the first one that comes to mind is going to be we've talked about Ahmad Hardy a lot, but if they are taking Ahmad Hardy out of this game, the matchup to watch is going to be Will Lee on Kevin Coleman. Kevin Coleman is he playing the slot wide receiver?
I think he's set. No, I think Coleman's on the outside, but I think they move him around in the slot because just the size advantage.
Yeah. So if that happens, they've been playing a good amount of man or zone. Mike Elko likes to joke a lot about what defensive schemes he's been running or if he's been changing them. But a lot of the matchups are going to be Kevin Coleman and Will Lee III this weekend. So that's one where Kevin Coleman can absolutely take the top off of defenses, especially when he was at Mississippi State. We definitely saw it before. They had, I believe, 3 wide receivers when Kevin Coleman was there that all ran under a 4.4 or something along those lines. There was some weird stat I saw out there in preparing for this game that at the time he was there, all ran just insanely quick. But Kevin Coleman, very, very experienced, especially in the SEC. So that's the matchup I'm looking at right now, where if A&M were to lose control of this game for a little bit, it would be that matchup.
Yeah, I think Brett Norfleet, and he's not on the injury report. I don't think they're tight end.
I don't think so.
We'll see on Wednesday, but I think look, if he's healthy, he's already put up over 200 yards. But he's a huge target. I think the tight end is a safety valve for any young quarterback. A&M has had, I don't think they've had like a ton of issues covering tight ends, but he is a big target like Coleman. We've seen Coleman, like you said, make a ton of big catches. He's really a third down option, especially for a freshman QB who A&M's going to bring the house on third down. They're one of the best third down defenses, but having another big target that can really exploit, guys like if Tyreek Chappell's on him in coverage, if they kind of line him up against some of these smaller defenders, that's just another big target that they can try to exploit A&M's secondary. But yeah, I agree with you. I think that this is going to be a third down type of game where if Missouri's going to have a chance to put more than 2 touchdowns on the board, in my opinion, unless this becomes a shootout for some reason, I just don't see it. But they're going to have to execute. They're going to have to, basically keep A&M's defense on the field for elongated drives. And when that, for that to actually happen, you need to utilize the weapons you have outside of Ahmad Hardy, because if A&M does shut him down, tripping over my words right now. But if they do shut him down, you do have the guys to get the job done in the passing game. It's just, can you trust the guy throwing the ball? We will see that early in the game. We will know if Matt Zollers is ready for this moment. And again, he did have a pretty good game against Vanderbilt. Obviously, they didn't win the game, but he plays with a very tough mentality. He looks pretty confident in the pocket. That's kind of why they don't expect them to change much. Like, they don't have to drastically change what they're going to do against A&M's defense. But yeah, I will say that, the tight end is going to be a position that you really have to watch for, because I think he had a pretty big game against Alabama. I'd have to look back. I think he did have a touchdown in that game. And
he did.
Again, against smaller coverage, it's a mismatch. So that is something to watch for. But again, it comes down to, can Missouri's offensive line block? Can they keep him clean? If they can keep Zollers clean, I think they'll have a chance to connect on some good on some explosive plays, because we've seen throughout the season, even Bo Prabula was not really regarded as a good passer, but his receiving core has elevated that.
Yes,
and they've been much better because of that. And again, Kevin Coleman is a very good player. I've been watching him throughout the entire year. So I think I agree with you more on that. I think he's going to be the X factor there.
Yeah, definitely. Shall we make a game prediction then?
Yeah, you go first. I getting this college football playoff update out. So you go first on that.
Yeah, go ahead and get that update out. I think that from what I've seen so far, and I'm calling it the Indiana and Texas A&M rule, where I have been underselling just how much Texas A&M and Indiana have been scoring pretty much every season with these lines. I think this line right now is -6.5 or -6 Texas A&M on the road.
Yeah, that's interesting to me, because I always thought it was going to be like, probably 3 to 4 points. I think that the whole freshman quarterback thing has kind of sputtered that out of control. I don't know if the line's going to move down a little bit closer to the game, but yeah, it's pretty interesting to me to see that.
Very, very interesting. And in spots like these where the line isn't as weird as it usually is. I mean, it's been adjusted for how Texas A&M has been scoring, but is also factoring in that Missouri is at home after a bye, and Texas A&M is also coming off a bye. So that's why this number is a little bit like this. But what it's also telling us is that whatever their model is that A&M is going to be able to score in this game. So I think from right now, I'm still going to be taking a lot of points from A&M. I'm even going to go more than I usually am going to predict. So I do think in this game, Matt Zollers, if A&M is able to contain him, not only contain, but kind of shut him down, especially with this pass rush, that's where I see this game just going out of control for Missouri, and that A&M can take over. And so I'm going to predict a 38-22. Or 38-19. I think if errant field goal could be in there. So I'll lean on A&M's defense a little bit more. So I'm going to go 38-19.
Yeah, I was kind of up and down, and I'll probably, we'll release our predictions on Friday, and I think I'll really come to a conclusion on Thursday after, I haven't looked at Eli Drinkwitz's full press conference yet. I don't know if he's going to speak again later in the week, but I will have to say that safety Jalen Catalon, who has faced A&M a lot in his career, going back to his days with Arkansas, knows him pretty well, knows Marcel Reed, I guess, a little bit. I think he was with them last year, I believe. He transferred into Missouri this season.
He did.
Yeah, so he made a comment today basically saying we have to force Marcel Reed to play quarterback, which is obviously a huge dismissal of Marcel Reed's, progress this year and how he's been one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Again, just a stupid comment. I'm going to be honest with you. I think, and all it's going to do is just be more locker room material. I get why he said it. I understand. Like, that's what players do. They want to, throw some fire and there's still some gasoline on the fire. But I think these guys are kind of living in the past. Going back to last year, we talked about the blanket and with Willie and what was it? Tease was the wide receiver.
What
last year? No, the incident last year when they played at A&M, the pregame thing with Theo
Weiss.
Theo Weiss, yeah. Geez, I just couldn't find his first and last name. Yeah, that was funny. And then A&M blew out Missouri at home. What was it, 52-7 or something like that? It was,
yeah, 40.
Pretty brutal. Yeah, I'm not saying it's going to be like that, but all you're doing is just making A&M even more ready for this game. Because I'm going to be honest, after it goes back to Mike Elko being confused that Missouri was one of the permanent rivals and everybody being confused and all of us kind of wanting Arkansas to be that team after what we just saw against Arkansas, how that was such a great game as a college football fan, even though A&M kind of squeaked out a win. You're thinking, why is this the permanent rivalry? Why is it Missouri? I don't get it, but whatever. Game on. Look, A&M is the better team. They have the better advantages. We've talked about this entire show, even though I kind of said the same thing over and over again, but it has to do with winning the line of scrimmage again on both sides. And if you can do that, Marcel Reed is going to have a big game because I don't see the secondary slowing down this passing game. If they can keep the penalties low, keep this a clean game, the weather's supposed to be good. A&M is going to be 100% ready for this matchup. They've won in Missouri in recent memory. I think going back to 21 season. I think the last time they won or played there, I think it's been that long.
I think it has.
It's been that long since they played Missouri. I remember that again, Zach Calzada season. But yeah, it's better that they're. I like I said, it's not just better for us who cover the team that it's a 2:30 game. I think it's better for A&M. They don't have to deal with another harsh night game where anything can happen type of deal. Obviously, didn't affect them against LSU. Marcel Reed after the game said, "I love these type of games. This dude is 100% confident. His team's 100% behind him. The defense is playing better every game. They're fixing those issues. And like I said, Cassius Howell is a madman. I can see him getting he's going to go against Caden Green the entire game. Caden Green was a higher ranking prospect coming out. He's been good to average, I would say. He hasn't been great, but I think he's still one of their better offensive linemen, I'd have to say. But
yes,
I'm going to be honest. I don't, unless he holds them all game and they don't call it. I see Cassius Howell having another 2-sack, possibly 3-sack game in this because I just think the way that Mike Elko is going to deploy him off the edge, lights out. And I don't see this freshman quarterback really making a lot of plays. I think he's just going to be under pressure the entire game. And what we've seen with veteran quarterbacks, they are prepared for that. The reason you can thrive in the NFL is if you're playing a team that's going to pressure you, you throw it, you're hot, you get the ball out quickly, you know where your guy's going to be. That's what makes you a player that can play at the next level, especially the quarterback position. That kid's not – Matt Zollers is going to be a very good quarterback, I believe. He's going to be a very, very good quarterback for the next 2 years, especially in Pro Bowl leagues. But right now, he's playing at the end of an SEC season against an A&M team that, like we said, has everything on the line. They're one of the hottest teams in the country alongside Indiana and Ohio State. That's the reason they're not undefeated on accident, okay? Because if they would have, beat LSU by a field goal and it was just because LSU kind of shot themselves in the foot, we wouldn't be talking about this team in the same way, right?
No, not at all.
Completely dominate a proud program up and down the field in the second half, going to a bye week, and they're even more confident knowing that this is the only huge hurdle in front of us before we face Texas in Austin at the end of the year. And obviously we will get into if Como is a tougher environment to play in than DKR. But we'll see.
We'll see. So
that's going to be fun. Well, that's far away. We will spend a lot of time talking about that.
What kind of score prediction are you thinking then?
I'm thinking I'm kind of along the same lines with you, but I'm going to say probably 31-14. I think they'll get an early score. I think they'll make it tight, but I do think A&M is going to run away with this like we've seen throughout the season in the second half, especially if the run game gets going. If they can get some chuck yards, player to watch for A&M, freshman running back Jamarian Morrow. I think he's going to be used a lot more in this game. You got to remember he was committed, flipped his commitment from Missouri to Texas A&M, has been lights out in almost every snap he's got. He is a star in the making. I love listening to this kid. He talked today. That dude is playing like a veteran. I think they're going to use him a lot in the screen game. He's an instant weapon, gives him more speed. I think he could have a big game. And I think, look, it's not personal because it's not like,
there's no personal aspect to this.
You play elevated, right? You play elevated when you go back to a school that you were committed to, and now you're with, a different program. It's just that kind of mentality. So I think he's going to have a big game.
I definitely think so too. I think looking into this game is definitely going to be, is Marcel Reed really going to have that takeover passing game again that we're all expecting him to at the next level? So right now, his underdog line is at 227.5. So
okay,
our partners over at Underdog right now are actually having a special for us. And guys, if you just play $5, you can actually just get $50 right into your account on Underdog if you use our code. So code is VOCFB Aggies. That is VOCFB AGGIES on Underdog. If you play 5, you get $50 instantly. I'm going to be playing Marcel Reed over 225.7 yards. You can pair that with any other sport you'd like, any other play. You only have to pick higher or lower if you want. You can even pick game totals. The line on this game right now, plus 7.5 or minus 7.5 A&M. So definitely go check it out, guys.
Yep, and as usual, participants must be 21 or older. If you have any gambling problem, you can always call 1-800-GAMBLER. So, yeah, I think that, again, I think it's funny because anytime any of us who cover A&M, I mean, you can be the most neutral beat writer, most neutral coverage guy out there. You gain an appreciation. You have a closeness to the team. Secretly, I'm not going to say you want them, but there's a thing about you when you follow them directly. Carter Carroll's our buddy at 24/7 Sports was on with Agnox, and it was a very funny interview talking about the buttons you don't want to press with Mike Elko, and you can tell even Carroll's does a fantastic job, one of the best beat writers out there for A&M. But you just this team so well because we follow them so closely. And we listen to every word that Elko says. We listen to every word these players say. And you just feel that nothing is impossible anymore for them. They knew coming into the season more than we did of how good they could be. We had a lot of questions there. And obviously it started with Marcel Reed. It ended with how this defense was going to perform with Mike Elko calling the plays, all these new transfer additions, how they were going to pan out. So far, you've got guys who could take home multiple awards at the end of the year. You've got a coaching staff that could bring home awards this year. And it's weird. I'll always say it's very weird because I'm used to covering very average Texas A&M teams that just didn't live up to the standard. And you're going every offseason going, okay, are they going to finally take that next step? Well, they have taken that next step. But this is just another game that they have to get. They have to basically deal with all the extra, and if they can beat a team like this by 20 points, we will continue to talk about this team in a different.
We're still going to not only be hyping them up, but we're going to be continually saying that this team is just way different than we've ever seen before.
Yeah, so just everything about them. I mean, it's hard to even say because, people always connect the brand and say, well, that's just A&M. No, that doesn't make any sense. It was Kevin Sumlin. It was Jimbo Fisher. It was a lot of toxicity that kind of built up at the end of their careers. I mean, there are stories about Kevin Sumlin's office being blacked out and it was just weird stuff, that you go back to. And it's like, that's all gone. Like the dumbness and all the extra crap is gone. And I'm not saying that Mike Elko solved every problem, but when you have a guy that fits the culture, and he was even talking about, Sean Spencer the other day, how he's just been so important to the culture, their defensive line coach, all those pieces have just fit perfectly. And, this is a recipe, not just for success this season, but for the rest of his time in College Station. So anyways, that's done with a preview, but the College Football Playoff, the first rankings came out. So
while we're talking,
while we were talking, one of my writers just got that out, and we'll put that on the board right now. So as you can see, A&M, we predicted this before the show. A&M is fit with their ranking in both the USLBM coaches poll and the AP top 25 poll at number 3, which I'm not surprised. I think that they still believe that Ohio State and Indiana, even though they have much easier schedules, in my opinion, especially, down the road, are just better teams slightly. I wouldn't say that they're like completely dominant and A&M is just really good. I think that I've seen a lot of conversation with national people putting A&M at 2 or, keeping them at 3, or not a lot of people keeping it at 1 because Ohio State is the defending national champion. And they have yet to really look average this year in really any game outside of maybe the first half against Penn State. But yeah, the rest of it, seeing Memphis in there is really cool. I love, I've watched them a couple times this year. They're a nice little, I guess you'd call them a Cinderella story, based on how they've just kept winning games and probably.
Ryan Silverfield looks good, man.
He does. I think he's going to be a hot coaching candidate, and he should be. Oregon fans are not going to like that. I think they're probably already complaining about that seeding. So, but right now, I mean, if I looked at these kind of eyeball, Texas Tech is going to be a very interesting team. They play BYU this weekend in a game that, pretty monumental for both programs in Lubbock. They've been dominant at home. That's going to be interesting to watch. Virginia, that's a wild card for me. Obviously, they're undefeated in the ACC. They only have 1 loss, I believe.
Yes, I think they are 8-1 right now.
Yeah, so that ACC race is interesting. To be honest with you, I saw the other day.
I believe so. What it looks like right now is that Virginia is the top ACC team, and then right behind all of them, how it would turn out right now, because Virginia, as the top projected seed in the ACC as of right now, they'd be in. But I think they're ranked overall 14, and then Louisville is right behind them at 15. So those are the top 2 ACC teams at 14 and 15 in rank. So what I want people to look at when they see this is that the college football playoff committee is completely separate in their rankings from the AP poll. So they're not connected for this. They're not going to take essentially they're a more analytically driven team when it comes to these rankings, because they want to at least try to make sure that they get all their facts and ducks in a row before they make these selections. So that's why they have this not only to generate hype for these teams, but to actually show their selection process before. Now they've said before this year that the new criteria is going to be used in determining these teams. We don't necessarily know what those changes are going to be entirely yet, whether it's certain sets of data, whether they're going to factor in more head-to-head matchups so far. We've had those conversations before, Cameron, kind of off camera before, where how does a 2 or 3 loss Miami team now, if they were to win out, affect Notre Dame's chances of getting in? Because Notre Dame right now, a projected 10 seed in this playoff, how would they kind of factor in because of that head-to-head matchup with Miami that they lost? So if it came down to it at the end of the season, I think it's interesting to see.
I would say, yeah. Well, yeah, sorry. Yeah,
no,
to your point.
No, A&M at 3 is kind of where I would have them. But if you're using the more analytically driven data, there is a very big case for at least the college football playoff ranking projection right now that they could have that number 1 overall seed. And I know ESPN data analytics is going to back that up as well. I know a couple of the broadcasters who were looking at this as well were kind of making the case for A&M to have that top seed over Ohio State and Indiana because of the teams that they have played so far. And so I think
I would say because
have to factor in.
Yeah, because I was going to say, another big game this weekend is Oregon and Iowa. So Iowa is the only team. Yeah, Iowa is the only team. Again, Iowa, I know Iowa very well. Obviously, always a very good defense. They have an elite defense this year. They're starting to kind of get something on offense going. Oregon has been very good in spurts and then very average against tough competition. Obviously, Indiana kind of showed that, dominated them physically on the road. That was that's why they are the number 9 seed. They haven't impressed 100%. I know their fan base is going to go, well, we beat these teams 50 to whatever. And it hasn't been that consistent. And Iowa is the only team that has really kept it close with Indiana this season, right? I mean, they had a chance to win those games. They had a little more offense. They probably could have won that game. I think really the game was ended by a touchdown, right? But Indiana, I think it was like passing touchdown at the end, but it was really like an 18-12 type of game.
I think so.
Very ugly. So that's a big game to watch. It's going to have a ton of implications for Oregon. We already mentioned BYU, Texas Tech this weekend. Virginia basically just has to keep winning. Ole Miss cannot. I'm trying to think what I heard.
At this point, I do think Ole Miss is a lock.
Yeah, because I think even if they lose again, they're still going to get in because of their resume. They have some big wins.
Their schedule, they've gotten past the harder part of their schedule already.
Yeah, because they're really not facing a lot of stiff competition at the end. But the point, no. If A&M is 12-0 or 13, they go to the SEC championship game. But if they're 12-0, they do deserve that conversation for the number one overall seed because they would have beaten. You look back at it, Notre Dame on the road, 3 consecutive home wins against. Well, you don't really put Arkansas in there, but obviously LSU, Missouri, Texas. You deserve to be in that conversation wholesale. Like I can look at all these teams' resumes. And Ohio State and Indiana, like we said, have been dominant. They haven't played the type of competition A&M has. Alabama has that now ugly loss to Florida State where they looked horrible against a Florida State team that we have now seen is average to below average. They are not a good football team. They surprised at the beginning of the year, but they really have they really sputtered down the road. But it's accurate right now. But I think this weekend's game slate is going to really tell us a lot about these teams, especially Texas Tech. I think Texas Tech, they have that one loss to Arizona State, which was kind of random now, and it kind of sucks because Arizona State lost quarterback Sam Leavitt for the year. Like, they're kind of looking back now and like, well, crap. Like, we got the short end of the stick where he had this miracle game, and they ended up beating us. Now we basically have to probably win out to keep it going. And now BYU beats them, it's going to be interesting. That's all I can say because they're vying for, because we do know that 5 through 8 plays at home in the first round, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. So you want that spot, especially Texas Tech. You want to play at home if you're Texas Tech, right? Because you've been dominant in Lubbock. If you're Georgia, you want to play at home. If you're Ole Miss, I think that is an advantage for them still. If you're BYU, you definitely want to play at home.
If you're BYU, you absolutely are ready for this in Provo.
Yeah, your fan base, they will show up. So it's like there are certain teams that, like A&M, to be honest with you, but if A&M's a top 4 seed, doesn't really matter. But the point is, like, there's not that many teams that love playing on the road like A&M does. Like, I'm telling you, I still laugh every time I look back at Marcel Reed talking at the end of that game, going like, yeah, I guess it was underwhelming. Like, with a big smile on his face, like this dude loves the challenge. But I think there are teams that would much rather, try to get to the first round, playing in front of their fans because, it's tough sledding. We saw that with Tennessee last year against Ohio State in cold weather. Like, it was a complete blowout. They just couldn't handle it. We've seen that throughout the college football playoff in this latest iteration. But overall, I think they did the right thing. I don't think if you're an A&M fan, you can't really dislike
I don't think
it.
so. Maybe just because people are trying to make the case or people are trying to say, and this is people. This is not what the analytics or data is just backing up entirely. People can take what they want with it. It's just a matter of, are they going to take the feelings of these teams more, or are they going to take the analytics, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's a combination of both that we don't know. But I think what makes it really funny is mathematically, Missouri isn't taken out of the playoff race yet, unless A&M beats them this weekend.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, 3-loss team. You're only going to get in as a 3-loss team if you have an exemplary resume. Like, I'm going to be honest. Like, if Texas,
that's where you see Texas and Oklahoma.
Yeah, right, that's why you see them, right? Oklahoma now has that big win on the road against Tennessee, even though they're an ugly team. I'm going to be honest, it was an ugly win, but it was a win as a win. And they have to basically tough their way through the rest of the season with John Mateer not playing well. I guess he's still injured, but They're finding ways to win, right? That's what's incredible. That's what football is all about. You got to find ways to win, get those big wins at the end of the season so you can have a chance to sneak in. But for Texas, you're on the bye, then you play at Georgia, who they're hungry to beat you because you beat them last year and didn't really affect Georgia that much. But still, it's a revenge game. And again, you still have to play A&M at the end of the season because A&M is going to be up for that game. Obviously, the way you embarrassed them in Kyle Field last year, it was a 17-7 game. There's a lot of emotions tied to that. Again, that's far away. We still got games in the front, so we're not going to spend time on that. But I do agree with that. I think that having Texas and Oklahoma there makes – I know a lot of people are going to just talk about Texas is overrated and they haven't done anything. Okay, they're 7-2, and they've only lost one game. Yeah, one game in SEC play to Florida in the Swamp, which I'm going to be honest, Georgia almost lost that game. So I get A&M dominating Florida at home, but playing in the Swamp is different unless you're A&M. But, that's a different story. But it's okay to put Texas at the spot because I get everybody wants to talk about them like they don't look that good and they're not that elite. The record speaks for itself, and especially if they win out, they're going to be in the college football playoff.
100%. Yeah. So I definitely think it's going to be interesting because they're going to have these playoff rankings kind of projected every week now at the exact time we're going to be doing this show. So
and we'll get the updates obviously, and then we'll have them throughout the week. But I will say this, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. The A&M is going to be a top 3 seed, for the next 2 weeks going in, because if they can get past this game and they're 9-0, even before South Carolina, I'm sorry. I think the only trap game left is Missouri. I've watched South Carolina too much this season. If A&M basically just doesn't show up, if they don't show up to that game, upset game, right? Then you get Sanford, and the Texas game is just going to be different for both teams. It's going to be funny to prepare for that game.
Rivalry games are just so
exactly and we talked about with Georgia Tech and Georgia that we saw last year what that game looked like. It's going to be hard to even prepare for that game because we're going to do X's and O's and defense versus and all that stuff. But these are two teams that hate each other. And A&M, and the irony of A&M being 11-0 potentially going into Austin, where they're pretty much have to win that game to even be in the conversation college football playoff, isn't just hilarious, but it's awesome, and it's going to fuel both these teams to play probably a fantastic game. And I mean, the college football schedule makers probably are having a field day with this, and especially when they put this first rankings together, knowing that A&M controls their own destiny completely. Like Mike Elko said, he's also focused on making the SEC championship game. He really wants to get to Atlanta. That'd be the first time in program history that happens. That it's always funny because I think, they know that they basically just can't screw up to make the college football playoff at this point. That's exactly. That's all they have to do. Like you said the other day, they just can't lose to Sanford. Like you said that, I think last week. I was like, ESPN, that's actually correct.
I believe by ESPN's metrics, they have a 97% chance of making the
97. It's.
Hey, say that out loud a couple
97%, times. 97%. Yeah, we were again. What were we last year? It was basically I remember that too. I was so pissed. I'd stay up late for that game. I was tired after they lost to Auburn. I was driving back, and I was and I saw my phone. It was hey, if they beat Texas, they'll be in the SEC championship game. I'm like, why are you doing this to me? But now it's this road, and if you can just secure that spot, the amount of confidence they're going to continue to play with, because you don't have that on your back anymore. You're basically fighting to get to the SEC championship game, which is just, the storylines there is just awesome, especially if Texas basically, like I said, they play Georgia next weekend because they're on the bye, Arkansas, then A&M. And is Arkansas in Arkansas?
Might be at home.
It's probably in DKR. Yeah. Again, though, that's an interesting game, right? You got an Arkansas team that's playing with house money. They don't care. They just want to upset a team. So it really does set up much better for A&M. And, any Texas podcast is going to tell you, like, they're still worried about how this team is going to respond after the bye week. The kind of the way they ended it is kind of funny. And I do respect that fan base a lot more because they are very much reality based now with how they're kind of watching the games.
There's a certain dose that they've been accustomed to now.
Yeah, and it is good to see because, like, we've been. I saw another Missouri person who actually, like, I'm not going to name her name, but she was like, maybe Texas fans and LSU fans were right about A&M fans. We're doing this again. We're like, you're finding a small sect of a fan base you don't like saying bad words or something. You're like, oh my God, that's the entire fan base. It's like, can we stop doing that? Because I didn't do that with Texas. We never did. Like, there are Texas guys. We're going to hopefully have one of the best Texas guys on the show before that game.
Hopefully.
And you're going to see, again, some of the guys in Texas media are awesome. They're very much like, they don't see this team like as some elite team. I mean, Vanderbilt almost came back and won that game. But, Arch Manning is playing much better. I can't wait to watch Texas, Georgia. I think it's going to be a fantastic game. And I think it's really going to show just how good Arch Manning is. But again, that just all sets up for, I think, that what's going to be the game of the year. Or A&M blowing them out in DKR, which would be just poetic. But,
hey, game of the year, still Army Navy in my book. So,
well, yeah, I mean the game. Let's say game of the year in the ACC, because there are games. It's going to be funny when it's a rivalry week. It's like Florida State. That thing. that's happening. Yeah, that's going to be fun. I don't even think either team's going to be playing for a bowl game at that point. Maybe Florida State. I don't know.
Hey, maybe Harvard, Yale.
Yeah. Yeah, there we go. But
hey, I think we've had a great show tonight. We'll be back.
We might do a post game. We'll get that sorted out. I know you'll be at the game, so based on traveling, based on ending, I'm not sure. But if we don't do that, then we will be back Tuesday to recap this game, focusing on South Carolina. Hopefully, we can get a South Carolina beat writer on. That'd be fun to kind of talk. I mean, it's not going to be an extensive preview, I would say. Mainly it's just talking about Lenore Sellers and stopping Lenore Sellers. That's really pretty much keeping their pass rush from making any damage. But just talking about the kind of the downfall of South Carolina would be interesting. Because when that game comes, like previewing it, I've been thinking about it all year through the season, and I always get back to kind of looking at the SEC as a whole. And I look at South Carolina, I'm like, what has happened to this team? Like, they were the darling of college football last year, and they could end 3-9, like, at this point, because you look at the rest of their schedule. I mean, they could, if they beat Clemson, that'd be hilarious. But it's just tough. And, having to play, as announced, A&M is going to be an 11 a.m. game, which obviously plays in the favor of A&M. Does not play in the favor of any road teams we've seen in the past. But yeah, just very interesting. Very, very interesting. We talked about the Tigers too. Like, Marshall Reed wasn't even included on there. Now he's top 3 consistently. Lenore Sellers was the favorite to be the Heisman winner. And I think they were talking about him as like the number 1 overall pick. It's very interesting how, you get into the actual season, we play actual football, and everything changes. So just fascinating stuff, but hopefully we can get that set up. But yeah, great show. I will say I can't wait till we get into. Whoa, did we mention? We did talk. We obviously did talk about. Did we talk about basketball yet?
Not really. I think,
not really. Yeah, we can say that quickly.
I'll give a quick recap, and then we'll see how it goes.
We'll put this up and we'll have this. So yeah, again, I think both of us. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So Monday night opened up the season for new head coach Bucky McMillan against Northwestern State, the Demons. We saw a very, very good sample size, and fans did. Over 7,500 fans came out. One of the larger opening attendances, for Texas A&M, and it just looked good. I think that's really what it boils down to. We saw Ruben Dominguez go for 16 in this game.
It was 18.
It was 18.
18, 4 for 7 from 3. Yeah, because I had the stats.
That is right. He got an errant little pass. He got right under the basket for a layup. I really liked what I saw from this team. We even saw true freshman Jeremiah Green come in and get some quality minutes as well. So Bucky McMillan will go deep into the bench already. They shot 37% from three, making 11 threes. But when you were in there, it really did feel like they could have scored 120 in that game. That's really what the story coming out of it is. So I saw a lot of what I liked, and they scored 98 points without arguably their best player, Mackenzie Mbako, still set to return from injury. We got to see Pop Isaacs, who was a game time decision, come into this game. And he got some quality minutes, knocked down a couple threes, looked pretty good at facilitating as well, especially in the pick and roll. I really liked what I saw from Josh Holloway, who has known this Bucky McMillan system for years now. He just looked like he was able to kind of be that on-the-court leader for this team, and I think you'll see that a lot more, especially Thursday night when they take on Texas Southern.
Yeah, and I think the biggest takeaway from that was a fantastic recap on there. But yeah, I texted you about Josh Holloway, and I was just like, I think they found their sixth man. I think this is a guy that can give you a boost off the bench. I mean, experience, knows that system, just looked so smooth under the basket. I mean, this is again, like you are wary of some of the players come from Sanford going to the SEC, going to one of the best basketball conferences. This kid's going to fit in well. He's a great athlete, just very efficient, and again has that relationship with McMillan, so that helps a lot. But like you said, frenetic pace. I mean, we knew this was coming in. Obviously, we've talked about this fast-paced system. These guys were so efficient. I mean, the fact is that you are playing without Mackenzie Mbako, who we sweated all offseason about him potentially going to the NBA because of the way he played during the combine. And, he opted to come back this year, obviously recovering from an injury. I think McMillan still feels that he can come back this month, which is huge. And I'm telling you, like, I get not ranking them. That's fine. Don't rank them. Don't talk about them, whatever. But they're going to start paying attention to this team because you shoot 49% from the field against, I get it's Northwestern State, fine. It's basketball. That's 49. That's almost 50% from the field. I have not seen offense from an A&M basketball team like this ever in my entire life. And I've been covering A&M for a long time. I've been watching A&M my entire life since I was a wee baby in 1994. Like, I've been through the iterations of terrible basketball to good to bad to kind of ugly to whatever Buzz Williams did the last couple of years, which was, again, they went to the NCAA tournament. I shouldn't say that. But it's just a complete overhaul of what we were used to. And like I said pre-show, I'm so happy for the Aggie fans that are in the area, that get to go to the games, the students that get to you saw how excited they were. I've not seen that fan base that excited for an opener for basketball in a long time. So it's very impressive to see. I think he's a cool, calm, collected dude on the sidelines. You can tell very cerebral, right? Very cerebral. Very much analytics. I love that Will Johnson and Tapp, who did the broadcast for the game, really talked about it. They said, look, this guy's all about NBA development. That's why he was able to get these transfers here, because they knew that playing under McMillan's system was going to prepare them for the next level. And especially a guy like Mbako, who could have gone anywhere. This was a McDonald's All-American 5-star prospect who went to a blue blood school in Indiana, did very well there, but saw another opportunity, go to the SEC, and really put that final stamp on his NBA starting career, which he already saw in the combine. He's not even playing, and he put up 98 points. Ruben Dominguez looks like Steph Curry out there. I'm going to be honest. Like, that stroke is so beautiful. I'm just like, I can't wait for him to have one of those 6 to 7 3-point games. It's going to be just awesome to watch. They are just like, I just can't believe how deep they are. Like, they're one of the deepest teams I've seen, because they showed it too. Like, they, outside of Zach Clemens, look, we'll see how Zach Clemens does the rest of the year. We'll see if he plays a lot going forward. He was really the only, I guess, downside, just didn't do a lot. I think he had 5 rebounds, though, so he contributed that way. But I'm telling you, there's not a lot of weak links on this team. Look, I'm not trying to be like panacea here, and I can't wait to see. I left watching that game going, I want more. I want to see this team, and I have not been that way with basketball in a while. I'm like, okay, that game's over. Get a break from buzzball for a little bit, right? But I want to see this team, and they have another game obviously against Texas Southern. They should win that game by a large margin. But Sunday afternoon, A&M football's over. If you're a Cowboys fan, you probably don't want to watch Cowboys anyways, but they're on a bye week, so you don't have to watch that. They play a huge game against Oklahoma State on Sunday afternoon.
Different Cowboys.
Yeah, there you go. Which could be without one of their best transfer players. We'll see.
We'll see. We'll see, man. I think it'll probably be more of a game time decision.
Yeah. But it is good. I will say that Pop Isaac played in this game because I think obviously he'll be ready the rest of the season for the rest of the games going forward. Because if he was game time and played extensive minutes, I think he's probably fine. But getting him acclimated more just helps his team. I'm going to be honest. I was blown away by that performance, and maybe it's just because I'm not used to, like, none of us are used to watching A&M offenses score like this. That's probably what it is. I had to kind of go back and if you're Auburn, well, not Auburn, but if you're a Kansas fan or something, you're used to these type of scoring outputs, but we're just not used to it. So it's very cool to see.
And we're here.
We'll end with that. So as always, you can follow me at Cameron Honesty on X. You can follow Cannon on at Torres Cannon, obviously, as well as the lead writer at Aggies Wire. We will be putting out our usual comparing stats tomorrow. I was supposed to put it out today, but I know that everybody loves to read those because we really get in the nitty gritty of where these teams line up stat wise. We'll have our predictions released on Friday, but yeah, just usual pregame stuff. So
yeah, a lot of pregame stuff. I think that, like I said earlier, you're going to find a lot of weird comparisons and how similar these A&M defenses really are.
It's going to be pretty easy, to be honest with you.
But yeah, apart from following Cameron over at Aggies Wire with him and his writings, you can also follow me over at Bell Tower Intel on Patreon, doing a lot of the recruiting coverage side for A&M on their football and basketball side. So definitely keep a lookout as we get closer to these final stretch of home games, South Carolina and Samford, as the Aggies are definitely going to get some major players on campus in hopes to either flip them or land them.
Yeah, one of the big ones, blanking on his name right now.
Hey, Braylon Womack.
Yes, thank you. I wrote about it earlier this week. You can tell I'm tired.
Yeah, definitely go check out that article that Cameron wrote on Braylon Womack if you want some details.
That's a big deal because obviously Auburn, there's a big shakeup there. I've already seen the Coleman articles. Just it's pretty chaotic right now. There's not going well in the playoffs right now, but no, getting well. I mean, he's still committed to Auburn, but he obviously said, "Look, I'm not like 100% opening up my commitment, but I'm looking at other. I'm looking at my offers. I'm looking at my other potential destinations." And perfect game to pick, I think. 11 a.m. kickoff, South Carolina. If A&M dominates in that game, like I think they will, and him kind of taking in Kyle Field again, that's all you can do, right? You got to utilize these final two home games. Texas is going to do the same thing, right? That game now at the end of the year for both these teams is going to be used and utilized as a huge recruiting opportunity. Obviously, it was like that with Kyle Field. Didn't go the way A&M wanted. Texas is going to have a lot, which is kind of interesting, right? Because Texas is probably going to have a lot of recruits that game that are A&M targets as well. Could include a Lamar Brown. We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know. So, yeah. But, all right. As usual, Gig'em beat the hell out of Missouri. We hope. So we don't have to come in here talking about a disappointing loss. But we'll be back, obviously, next Tuesday. If we do a post game, it will likely be released on Sunday afternoon, but we will see. So
we'll see.
All right, guys. See you next Tuesday, and have a good night.